especially these days. We're just coming out of the time to refrain from embracing. We've all been through quite a year, and now with the widespread availability of vaccine, we're ready to come out of that year, to come out into a newness, to actually be resurrected into who and what we truly are. So, this love, this light, this joy, this peace, this understanding is God. It is good. It is the life itself. You know, we lost a lot of loved ones this year. I don't know anyone who doesn't know someone who lost someone for any number of reasons. 600,000 people from COVID. And how do we get through this? You know, religion is supposed to help us with these big questions. Religion is there to be a support. It helps. Why is there suffering? Last week, Veronica talked about that. Where do people go when they die? We don't know. How am I to live? The Christians talk about heaven or hell. A lot of religions talk about a hell. And how do religious sciences talk about heaven? Streets paved with gold. That actually comes from a reference in Revelations 21:21. But I have a different story. There's a story told about a miner who struck gold, and he carried this bag of gold with him everywhere. You can imagine he gave up his life for this gold. And so when he died, he went to heaven, still carrying these precious nuggets of gold. And when he arrived, an angel asked him, "Why are you carrying asphalt?" He says, "This isn't asphalt, it's gold." To which the angel replied, "On earth, it's called gold, but here in heaven, it's what we use to pave our streets." So granted, this is just a funny story, but it prompts us to think about what we consider valuable and what is truly valuable. And I think this last year has been instrumental in that. A lot of things that we used to do are no longer calling to us. And things that we never took time to do have stayed with us. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And so this month, the theme for Centers for Spiritual Living is the soul's call. And we've heard several talks about that already. And so I'm going to go to the next part. See, the soul's call is this deeply intimate, challenging, exponentially powerful, and globally beneficial work that we are invited to do every day. It's huge, yes, but it is personal and it is every day. And it's globally beneficial because when any one of us awakens, it affects and evolves the global consciousness. So this year with Centers for Spiritual Living, the themes have been all around this evolutionary vision and the timeless wisdom. And so for evolutionary vision, we envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscious in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing a sustainable structure to further the emerging global consciousness. This is written into the message from the Centers for Spiritual Living. It is written into our bylaws. And again, we envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. All life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects. And this is through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. Ernest Holmes tells us evolution is the awakening of the soul to a recognition of its unity with the whole. So we blossom in to that oneness. And so this is the soul's call, this evolution into that wholeness. And what is that evolution without love? I've heard it said that God is love. So evolution without love would be evolution without God. without the values and principles that we speak of as qualities of God. See, without love, evolution is a spiritual path of apathy, complacency, lethargy. And it's easy to talk about love, but it's more challenging to love our neighbor as ourselves. And this evolutionary leap in radical love calls us to reach out and love one another. So it is time to embrace. Which brings us to the timeless wisdom. Timeless wisdom, freedom, love, oneness, these are qualities of spirit. So we recognize oneness. There's one infinite reality, and we call it by many names. Some call it God, some call it life, universal spirit, infinite intelligence, whatever. It is the one infinite reality which is undivided, complete, and whole within itself. This oneness creates everything out of itself. It gives of itself, and yet it is not consumed by that. Because it creates everything out of itself, it includes the absolute, the relative, the tangible, the intangible, the physical, the metaphysical aspects of reality. And this oneness is changeless, though it takes many forms. And then we come to the quality of freedom. Freedom is the birthright of every individual, and we are free to choose and create our experience of life. And love. Love is the self-givingness of that universal spirit through its desire to express itself in terms of creation. Love is the impulse, and the law is the way of creation. And behind all of this is spirit as the changeless reality. It is the same yesterday, today, tomorrow. And that Spirit loved each of us so much that it created all life and everything that is within it. Spirit is free, so our birthright is freedom. Spirit's nature is light, and therefore each of us is infused with light. We are infused with light to the degree that we recognize it. And although we come from the one creator, often we as human beings having this spiritual experience seem to forget that there is just one thing going on. Spirit expressing itself as itself. There is just one thing going on. One power, one presence, one infinite source, no matter what the appearance may be. And this is something I remind myself of daily. No matter what the appearance, there's only one thing going on. In the October 30th, 1943 issue of the Christian Science Sentinel, you heard it here first. Someone asked a man how he was, and he replied, "I'm going through hell." His friend said, "Well, keep on going. That's no place to stop." This was in 1943. And I've heard it many times before in many different ways, like if you're going through hell, don't stop to take pictures. If you seem to be going through the deep waters of physical anguish and cannot, for the moment, seem to gain the understanding that you know is true, you just keep on going, keep on clinging to that truth. And join with others who also know that truth. Religious science is a synthesis of the laws of science, opinions of philosophy, and revelations of religion applied to the human needs and aspirations of man. This is in the textbook. And as religious scientists, we talk about heaven and hell as states of mind. And the good news is, if heaven is a state of mind, then we don't have to wait for it. It can exist for us right now. Of course, the same is true with hell. Hell can exist for us right now. And I'm sure we've all had moments where we imagine the worst. And that is hell. But right now, what I'm really interested is in neither heaven nor hell, but how do I live today? As Janice read, yesterday is not, tomorrow is not, today is. So how do I come out of the hibernation of the last year and a half to the brightness of this day? Well, I went back to Ernest Holmes, and this is what he wrote in his book, Journey into Life. Today, the horizon is clear. The voyage starts anew, and we are reborn. And boy, are we ready to be reborn. Ready for that. He continues, the true resurrection is not only from this life to the next, it takes place daily and hourly as we shed the limited concepts of life and come into the vineyard to gather the fruit of spirit, which is hanging rich from the vines of God. A person may be reborn, remade, renewed in mind and body don't you just love that word, just through taking a little time to get acquainted with his better self, just through coming to recognize the invisible and almost unknown guest who accompanies everyone through life, the spiritual presence within. Well, that's great news, but how do I incorporate it into my everyday life? For example, this weekend. So today is Father's Day. Yesterday was Juneteenth. Tomorrow, the summer solstice. So how do I get acquainted with and recognize that spiritual presence within in each of these cases? Can I bring this into a meaningful coalition with a cohesive message? And so I'm looking at that as from a new perspective, from the spiritual qualities that each one brings. Well, Juneteenth is about freedom, and more specifically about an awareness of that freedom. Father's Day is about relationship, about love, about the creative energy. Summer solstice is about the changing seasons and the changelessness of that. And so one of the ways I bring that into my life is with the music and with the music that we've heard today. So freedom, lift every voice and sing, and then turn, turn, turn. That is the changing and the changeless. And then later we will hear, you are the wind beneath my wings, which is really a love song to spirit. So let's start with looking at freedom. So God created humans in his own image and likeness for us to express our individual joy and love, and nobody can take away that birthright. There is no limitation or limit to our thoughts, and therefore we cannot be contained. And yesterday was Juneteenth, the very first time that we have celebrated that as a nation, although in Texas we've been celebrating it since 1980 as a public holiday. And it commemorates the day in 1865 when enslaved people of Texas, which was then the most remote region of the Confederacy, which is still, it's kind of remote. Just think about West Texas. And they finally learned that slavery had been abolished and that they were free. And so I'm sure everybody knows that last Thursday, President Biden signed legislation to make it a federal holiday. And he called it a day of, in my view, profound weight and profound power. He said all Americans can feel the power of this day and learn from our history, celebrate progress, and grapple with the distance we've come and the distance we have yet to travel. See, on January 1st, 1863, at the stroke of midnight, there were parties because that was the time when the people in the Confederate States were declared legally free. And it wasn't until later that this Emancipation Proclamation was read to the people in Texas. So freedom finally came on June 19th, 1865. And this day became known as Juneteenth. But the lesson in this, the lesson that is coming to me, is it wasn't until people knew that the Emancipation Proclamation had been approved, revealed, ratified, that they embodied that which has already been given. It wasn't until they knew it that they were able to celebrate 2.5 years later. I'm thinking about times in my life when something happened, but I didn't know it. A lot of times in prosperity class, we hear about, oh, I, wrote a check back in the days when we did that, wrote a check and then the money came in the mail. Well, it was already in the mail, but we didn't know it. So where in my life am I not aware that something, my good has already arrived? Where in my life am I not aware of it? And because I'm not aware of it, I'm living in limitation. So in practice, the emancipated soul must always realize that he's in union with the Father. What the Father does, he can do in his own life. And what God is, he can become. That is from Creative Mind and Success by Ernest Holmes. What God is, he can become. This is our promise. And so living in that idea of the Father, what the Father does, he can do in his own life. Father's Day started in 1909, a couple of years after Mother's Day, because Mother's Day came first. But there was a young woman who wanted to honor her father as well. And she sat in church listening to the Mother's Day sermon, and she decided to designate a day for her father, who was a Civil War hero. And from that, we have our Father's Day after, some twists and turns and times. I read a little poem. This is called When You're a Father. They say if you're a father, you've got eyes behind your head and lots of fine-tuned radar when your kids are off to bed. They say when you're a father that your arms are wide for hugging and also wide enough to stop your children from wild slugging. They say when you're a father that your kids think you're not fair, but when they're in trouble, well, they know you'll soon be there. They say that when you're a father, you must mix your work with play. And when your kids grow older, they'll say, Happy Father's Day. That's by Denise Rogers. And from that beginning of Father's Day, we celebrate our earthly father's role in our life, those that gave us the gift, those individuals who provided us with the masculine energy, strong support, protection, guidance, wisdom, and love. In a piece entitled Empowering the Fathers of This World, Lorraine Buffett McNeil writes, Today is Father's Day, the day in which we honor and offer gratitude for our fathers, in whatever form or fashion they come into our lives. Our biological fathers, stepfathers, adoptive, foster fathers, grandfathers, spiritual fathers, and all the uncles, brothers, and friends who, whether they knew it or not, have helped to fill the role of father in someone's life. We're shaped by their presence and their absence, by how they choose to act and when they abstain, what they say and when they remain silent. Let us remember today and always the impact that these people have on us as individuals and as community. And she continues, let us also remember that this relationship is not one-sided, and we, as a community, are called to support and empower the fathers of this world, no matter how they came into their roles and regardless of their relative success or failures. Let us raise up their triumphs and let us have the grace to forgive them. They're all too human failures. Let us love our fathers and love each other. So no matter what our human relationship with our fathers was, Ernest Holmes writes this. He says, just accept then that no matter what your experience may have been until now, the truth about you is that while you were born of human parentage, the real you that came through this human parentage is an original, creative, wonderful being. You are God's beloved child. This isn't a myth. This is real. Well, I trust Ernest Holmes. This isn't a myth. This is real. We are God's beloved child. And love is that self-givingness of creation of itself. Love points the way. And so we celebrate freedom, we celebrate love. And lastly, today I'd like to celebrate the summer solstice and how we recognize spirit in the change of seasons. So tomorrow is the first day of summer. In the northern hemisphere, receives more daylight than any other day of the year in the summer solstice. And the southern hemisphere experiences the winter solstice. So let us celebrate that which provides not only light, but life itself. Dr. Holmes says, we all receive some light, and that light is the same light. There is one nature diffused throughout all nature, God incarnated as all people. There's a time in each of our lives to be in the light, as well as a time to be with the darkness. God provides the seasons to live in both. Light and darkness are both God ordained, so we must learn to celebrate both of those seasons, for they show up for each of us. Elsewhere, he tells us nature will not let us stay in any one place too long. The seasons cycle through. She will let us stay just long enough to gather the experience necessary to the unfolding and advancement of the soul. And this is a wise provision, for should we stay in one place too long, we would become too set, too rigid, too inflexible. So we're all living in a world of continual change, a world in which thought, thing, experience are all in a constant state of flux. And it's the very nature of the universe that there should be a continual change and variation. But behind that which changes, which causes the change, we found there's something stable and changeless, something eternal upon which all of the external events depend for their very existence. Behind the endless process of change and the infinite variety of experience and expression, there is that which does not change. The thing that changes is the thought or the form. The substance never changes. Spirit never changes. Forms change. So as we enter into this longest day, when we receive the most light of the year, we joyfully allow ourselves the beauty of this time together, in which we rest our cares and sorrows and allow our hearts and spirits to be uplifted. I want to share a poem by David Breeden. This is The Solstice Teaches Us. The solstice teaches us that darkness comes, that darkness goes. The solstice teaches us that light comes, that light goes. The solstice teaches us calmly, silently, to be calm, silent, learning. The solstice teaches us as we circle the sun that everything flies. The solstice teaches us to remember the dark, to remember the light, to remember time, the seasons, and love as we circle the sun. So this weekend we celebrate freedom, love, light. Remember, the Spirit is the same yesterday, today, tomorrow. It is the one changeless reality that is love, that is light, and that created all to express freedom. We are a confluence today of yesterday, today, tomorrow, past, present, future. And as Janice read, yesterday is not, tomorrow is not, but today, bright with hope and filled with promise, is mine. How then do I live? I go back to the music. I lift up my voice and sing. I know that for everything there is a season, and I turn to Spirit as the wind beneath my wings. So today, I move forward in my life from a place of love. And let's just take that idea into our treatment at this very moment. Again, one power, one presence, one infinite source, one divine mind, one light, one love, one joy, all one. And that oneness is a gift. In that we are created. We are made of that self-givingness of spirit. And each one of us has within us the qualities of spirit: freedom, joy, wonder, forgiveness, love, peace, beauty, truth, prosperity. All of these gifts of spirit freely given as spirit experiences itself through us. And I'm so grateful for this gift of spirit, so grateful that there is that divine love that nurtures and guides us, that grows us, that love of Father, Mother, God, that love of each and every human being that radiates in perfect harmony, pulsing to the same beat, love. And I give thanks also today for the abundance of life, for the joy, for knowing that everything that we need is provided for us even before we know it. The gift has already been given. And so with love and abundance, also that divine creative expression that we are the hands, the feet, the voice of spirit on earth. And so I'm grateful for this ability to create, the ability to be that spirit. So with love, with abundance, with creative energy, I also give thanks for this physical beingness, for this body that allows us to feel, to be, to experience. What a gift. And giving thanks for all of this and knowing that it is all in perfect right order, divine right balance, I just let it be. I give thanks that this is already so. This is already so. And now I can let go. Love is the impulse, law is the doer. And so I release this into the law that is already made manifest, these words. And so with a joyful anticipation of the perfect unfolding, I let it be. I invite you to join me in this by saying together, and so it is.